Salbona, and I welcome you all to question number 8. I indeed appreciate your interest in this question, and I look forward to your responses because I really do feel like this is an important issue that needs to be addressed, and there are possible answers that have been already brung forth, but I think there are other deeper meanings to the reasons why these happenings have occurred. So if you could tell by the title, Why Blacks Fear Water, I got this idea because I don't normally watch the news, but I was directed to watch the news because of a special that they had on our local Channel 10 News about blacks fearing water, and not only the fear of swimming, but also the results of our fear of swimming, resulting in astronomical ratios of drownings. They said blacks are 3 times more likely to drown in open water than any other group. If I'm not mistaken, it said that out of the 20 drownings in our area in the last year, 10 were black. So I know for myself, I just recently, about last year, learned how to at least do something that I call swimming because of my fear of water that I've had for my entire life. So oftentimes people don't understand this, and you may get teased, joked and picked on about not being able to swim or not wanting to get close to waters. Living close to a beach, I never really cared to go to the water. It didn't make me much of a difference because of my fear of water, sometimes to the point of having nightmares about it when I was growing up. So this is a personal issue that I've noticed, but also seeing the results that were shown by the statistics of our drownings, it prompted me to look a little deeper into the reasonings for these things happening within our people. So the reasons that they gave, they were plausible, and I do like them, and I don't doubt that they are reasons for us, having these higher ratios of drowning compared to other people. They were saying culturally, it's just not cool to swim for us, for one thing. It's cooler for us, this is just me talking, but it's cooler for us to play basketball or football or something like that. So that may be a factor. If you look at it, they said also, which I agree 100%, that one of the reasons also, especially in women, is because of appearance. The host of the show, of the special, she showed a picture of her before getting into the pool, and then a picture after getting into the pool, of course, with her hair wet and whatnot. So she said that the focus that our women, and for the most part, blacks in general, focus on our looks is another thing that keeps us away from the water and swimming because it, so-called damages our appearance. Again, superficial, but I agree with that 100%. And also, another reason they mentioned was the financial aspect of it, because many of us growing up in low-income areas, we don't have access to the backyard pools that whites and other people may have. I'm not saying all of us, but when I say most, I'm probably speaking for most. But my guess is the majority of us don't have the backyard pool because the majority of us probably don't even live in houses. Now, even with the neighborhood pools and whatnot, by income restrictions for a lot of our people, we're not even able to live in those neighborhoods. So then the extra expenses of going to the Y or going to rec centers, that is just another bill that most of us don't need. So the access financially to swimming areas, at least enclosed swimming areas versus the open waters, the access to closed pools, not just indoors, but I mean a controlled swimming environment, is just not readily accessible and feasible financially for most of us. So these are the reasons that they came up with. And you looking at it on the surface, yes, these things make a lot of sense, and I do agree with them. But I think for us, it's something that's a little bit deeper, and it goes back into ancestral lineage. And this is the actual question. Is it possible that we as blacks fear water because inherent inside of us, it is a survival tactic that was used by our ancestors? So let me explain. If we look at our peoples, and I know our peoples were all over, but I'm just going to, focalize my point on Kukongo herself. If we look at our peoples of the Nile, of the Zambezi, of the different rivers, Congo and whatnot, the different rivers and large areas and bodies of water within our homeland, these areas are populated by animals that are not found in many places of the world. So if you look at the Nile, for instance, of course, the most famous animal in the Nile is more than likely the Nile crocodile. Now, if you think about us having to evolve and structure our lives and our culture, our living environment, our feeding and eating environments and whatnot around areas of such a large and dangerous animal, we're probably not going to go near the animal, the Nile crocodile, because we know what it can do. So that some may mistake that as a fear, but I call that a respect. And I'll get to that deeper a little bit later into the question. So I think as far as that goes, we respected what the Nile crocodile could do. When we could see this animal take down wildebeest and large 1,000-pound buffalo, our 100, 200-pound bodies really wasn't going to be much for it to take down. And now actually seeing these majestic animals actually do this physically to our loved ones over time, I think by personal experience, we learned not to go and venture too close to the water and swim in these rivers and whatnot. And now let me clarify. I'm not saying that we don't go swimming, and I'm not saying that our people, just ignore the water and just don't go to the water at all. No, our people, of course, swim. But I'm talking about on a whole and why many of our people are, still afraid of water to this day and whatnot, according to the report, statistics, and these types of things. So I don't want to, throw that in there like we just don't go swimming. But I'm looking deeply into why we have this anxiety about swimming oftentimes. So if we look further, we have more than likely by scientists, biologists, they said the most dangerous animal in the world is the mother hippo. So you think about the hippopotamus being in the water and our people seeing what the Nile crocodile can do to us, and then see a mother hippo bite a Nile crocodile in half, then we will probably have just as much respect or more for the hippo. And we see two male hippos fighting these, I don't know how many tons they are, but I know they are some tons. We see these animals fighting with blood and with however 1 foot long tusks biting each other in the water. We know for a fact we can't compete with that on a one-on-one physical level. So not only do we have the Nile crocodile, but we had one of the enemies of the Nile crocodiles, which is the hippo in the water. So that's two dangerous animals we couldn't defeat. Now, then we look at it even deeper. We have the great elephant that goes into the water. Now, the elephant is normally harmless, but at any given time, by the size, strength, and whatnot of the elephant, of course, you're going to pay respect to an animal that size. But then we look at the leopard. The leopard is a great swimmer. The leopard is almost as agile in the water as it is on land and in the trees. So we see the leopard in the water sometimes attacking young Nile crocodiles. See, they have leopards killing crocodiles in the water. So then we look at it and we have the Nile crocodile, we have the hippos, we have the elephants, we have the leopards in the water. Those are all reasons to stay away from the water. And then we may have, as you know, as the Great Migration of the wildebeest or whatever it is, the Great Migration where the animals by the millions run across the rivers and whatnot. Now, in the process of this, there is the possibility of children and people in the water getting trampled. Now, I know you would see the animals coming, but I'm just using this for instance. Now, when do lions, hyena, as a matter of fact, the Nile crocodile even knows how to calculate the Great Migration? All of these predators calculate the coming of the Great Migration, so they flock to this area. They don't even attack one another. They wait for the wildebeest or whatever to run, or the zebra to run across the water to where they will be weakened, or they will be able to, maneuver a little bit better in the water because the wildebeest and the zebra and whatnot are not as agile in the water and they're much more vulnerable. So all of these animals are in one area at one time. That is another reason for us to stay away from that water. See, it took time for us to understand what we could do as far as our survival was concerned and what we couldn't and shouldn't do as far as threats to our survival. Now, I think, as it's spoken about psychological DNA here, over the millions of years that we have evolved into what we are now as our African people, the millions of years that our psychology has been passed down for survival skills and survival necessities is still inherent within inside of us. So deep down, we fear water, in my opinion, in my assessment, because of this ancestral need to survive. So why did I say that, that can be shown in other peoples? Well, you look at the European, and I have discussions about this subject oftentimes when I'm educating. But look at the European. Has anyone ever wondered, especially Christians, I want you to talk to me here. Has anybody, well, as a matter of fact, let's include them all, Christians, Muslim, and Jew. Have any of you ever wondered why the snake was evil? Have any of you ever wondered why the snake was equated with hell? Why the snake was equated with death, deception? You understand? I want you to ask yourself that question. Because if you are able to think deeply into that question, you will understand why all of those texts are European-derived or white-skin-derived texts. And I say that because a snake, as we know, represented healing. They even took it and put it on a medical symbol here in, America, KKKA, America. They put it on the medical symbol here to represent healing because they got that from us. If you look in India, you see, as they call the snake charmers, who have the cobra coming up out of the pot and whatnot, and they tap the cobra on the head. They watch the cobra do the dance. They even mimic the dance of the cobra, and now you call it belly dancing and things like this. So the motions and the movements and the activity and the nature of the snake was always something that we revered. But why were we able to revere that? Well, the same way that we were able to respect and revere the great animals of the rivers, whether it be the Zambezi, the Mweru, the Nile, and any other river that we live near, Limpopo, all of them. And even our Babemba, they named themselves and they established their land according to the crocodile that they found near a river. And they call themselves Ngwena, which means the people, the crocodile people. So we revered these animals because we had lived alongside them for so long that we were able to understand how we compared to them as far as survival was concerned. So we knew what we could do and what they could do to us. So this is why we knew how to maneuver with snakes. We knew how to handle snakes and these things because we had always lived with them. But think about a people, because snakes are cold-blooded, which means they need heat to live. You're not going to find snakes in the polar ice caps, in the Caucasus, with the Eskimos, in Russia, and all of these different places where white people evolved. You're not going to find snakes and reptiles there. So once they started to migrate southward and started becoming in contact with us, they were also coming in contact with things that lived alongside us, such as the snake. So if we look at it, if you're not acclimated and accustomed to dealing with a dangerous animal such as a cobra, such as a reticulated python, such as, these large boas and the black mamba, these snakes were deadly. Seeing someone die would make them equate that animal and its actions with wrongdoing, evildoing, and death. So this is how you know that those texts center evil around the snake. You know where the origin of that myth must have come from people who viewed the snake as evil. So just as they teach their people to be afraid of snakes, and our black selves ignorantly grow up being taught and reteaching to be afraid of snakes like them because of Satan and all of that crap, then we have, in essence, assumed their mentality and not overstood why their mentality is the way it is toward that snake. You see, so I think with that approach, by viewing them and their teachings about what has harmed them throughout time, I think we should do the same in understanding, overstanding, and more importantly, understanding why we have this general fear of water. So I want to ask that question, and I'm very interested in your responses because I think this is something that can give us a better understanding about ourselves, because it is very important to understand psychological DNA. And they even mentioned as one of the causes that I forgot, that during slavery, we were not able to have access to the clean water supplies and the clean waters to go swimming and bathing and all of those things. We got the putrid water. And, of course, we got the diseased water and all of those things. I remember going to North Carolina one time when I was young, when I was a Christ insane, and I went and got baptized. I got baptized at what they call the Black Beach. And I said, well, why do they call it the Black Beach? And I was told by my uncle, who's a minister who was baptizing me at the time, I was told that they called that the Black Beach because we were not allowed on the White Beach. Now, I'm barely over 30 years old. This is not the 1800s. You understand? This is not the 50s. This is not the 30s. We only want to deal with water. And I remember when I got baptized, I was so afraid of water, I thought that I was drowning for the few seconds I was under the water. And I was kicking and trying to get back up. And when he pulled me back up, went ahead and wiped my face and did whatever he had to do, the prayer or whatever it was. I forgot the full ceremony. But I remember how afraid I was of the water getting baptized. Now, I want to ask that, are we afraid of water because our necessity of survival throughout our story by our ancestors? Now, I also want to say this because I know there's some very immature people, and this is a very important question because this affects our people directly, the literal life and death of our people. So I take this extremely seriously, and I want to rule out any ignorance that may want to follow. When some people see the title, Why Blacks Are Afraid of Water, I know some foolish people want to say, we don't bathe in those types of things. So if at all possible, leave that out. This is a real deal issue that I'm trying to bring forth more light to the subject and the deeper meaning so we can possibly come up with better understandings about ourselves. So let's leave that out. With that said, I look forward to your comments. I look forward to your ideas. I look forward to your own personal experiences about being afraid of water, or if you were never afraid of water, were you subjected to some of the reasons that the news broadcast mentioned about the cultural experience and the fear of your looks? And, did you have access to better financial means where you were able to have access to enclosed pools and things like that? So I want to really hear about this so we can try to figure out what to do about these things. So with that said, Hambakale.